In this video, we will be building a full stack MERN Todo app. If a user is not logged in, they will be redirected to the login page. Let's start by registering a new account. We will enter the email john@gmail.com and the password john@123. Now, when I click the register button, it will be disabled and the button text will change to registering. After the account is created successfully, user created successfully message will be shown, and after 2-second delay, the user will be redirected to the login page. Let's move on and log in with the user we just created. If we enter the wrong password, we'll see an error message, invalid credentials. At this point, our cookies are empty. After entering the correct credentials, access token cookie will be added and will be redirected to our main page. The user does not have any to do yet. Let's add a new to do. We will implement optimistic UI updates with SWR. This means the UI will be updated instantly before the actual database update happens. Pay close attention to the network tab on the right side of the screen. When we add the to do, the UI will immediately reflect the new to do before the actual update happens in the MongoDB database. We will also show additional text adding alongside the to do. After the to do is successfully added to the MongoDB database, we will revalidate the to do and update the UI with the actual to do. Now let's mark the to do as completed. If we refresh the page, we will see the loading skeleton for the to-dos. While it is fetching the latest data from the database, we can update the to-do. We can delete the to-do. Let's throw an error from our backend without deleting the to-do. Now, if I click on the delete icon, to-do deleted toast message will appear. However, after the 2-second delay, we will be getting the error response. So the optimistically deleted to-do will revert to its original state. I have opened my VS Code inside a folder named MERN Todo. Inside this folder, create another folder. Let's call it server. Let's navigate to this folder with cd server. Let's initialize a project with npm init -y. Let's install the latest version of expressjs with npm install express at greater or equal to 5.0.1. This is the latest version of Express right now. expressjs is installed in our project. Now install the following dependencies: bcrypt.js for hashing passwords, body parser for parsing incoming request bodies, cookie parser to parse and handle cookies, curse to enable cross-origin resource sharing for allowing requests from different domains, .env to load environment variables, JSON web tokens to create and verify JSON web token for user authentication, Mongoose to interact with MongoDB database, and finally NodeMon to automatically restart the server whenever the file changes. Inside server, create a file name index.js, console log, hello world. Open package.json. Let's add a script to execute index.js. Remove this. Dev node.js index.js npm run dev. Let's do some changes. The changes are reflected here. Now let's import Express. By default, Node.js uses CommonJS module. So to use import and export statement, we have to add type module in our package.json. Type module. Now let's create instance of Express module. Const app invoke Express. Let's assign port number to our Express server. Const port 3000. Let's define a get route. App.get / request response next response dot send hello world app.listen port console.log listening on port number. Now let's hit this endpoint from our web browser. Localhost 3000 / we are getting the response. We can define all of our routes in index.js, but it would make our code messy. So we'll be using express.router class to create modular route handlers. For that, inside server, create a folder name routes. Inside routes, create a file name auth.js. Similarly, create another file todo.js. Inside auth.js, we'll define all the routes associated with the authentication, that is login, register and logout. Similarly, in todo.js, we'll define all of our to-do routes. Open app.js file. Import Express from Express. Now let's create router instance. Const router express.router router.post /login request response next response.send login route. I'll copy and paste this. Register. And log out. Export default router. Now let's import this in index.js. Import auth route from /route/ auth.js. app.use /API /user pass here auth route. Now when we hit an endpoint, localhost 3000 /API /user /login, we should get this response. Let's try it out with Postman. Let's create new collection, blank collection. Let's name it Todo app. Add request, post request to login. This is the URL. Click on send. We are getting the response. Let's save it. Similarly, let's check for register and logout route. Copy this. We can copy and paste it. /register. Click send. This will be for register. Logout. Logout. Click send. Logout route. Save this. Save this. Now let's define our to-do routes. I'll copy and paste it here. Router.get. For this endpoint, we'll return all of our to-dos. All to-dos. Router.post. Here we'll add the to-do and return the created to-do. Created to-do. Router.put. Here we'll update the to-do /id. Console.log. Request.params.id. Let's send this request params.id. Now let's create route to delete the to-do. Router.delete /id. Delete to-do with id. Request.params.id. Let's import this in index.js. Import to-do route from /route/todo.js. API/todos. Pass the to-do route. Let's try it out with the Postman. add a request, get all to do, localhost 3000/API/to-dos, then slash. Let's send the request. We are getting all to do's. Similarly, let's check it for other routes. Also, let's define a route to get the individual to do. Open todo.js. Copy this. Router.get. Response.send. Get to do with id request.params.id. Get to do. Let's pass id 123. This is working. Copy and paste it. Let's save this. Copy and paste. Put 1 2 3 4. Send. Update to do. Delete. Click on send. Delete to do with id 1 2 3 4. So all of our routes are working as expected. Now to handle the request, we'll create another folder. Let's call it controllers. Inside controllers, let's create a file auth.js. Similarly, todo.js. We'll implement the logic of each route here and import the function in the routes that we have defined earlier. Let me show you an example. Let's first do for the register route, export async function register request response next response dot send register route. This should be inside auth.js. Now open auth.js route. We'll import that function here. Import register from auth controllers. We'll pass the function here. Let's hit this route from postman. Register, click send. it should be auth.js. Click on send. We got the register route. Similarly, I'll create the function for login and logout. Let's remove all of our files. Open auth.js, copy and paste, login, logout, remove this. Let's import all of this function in auth.js route. Login, register, login, register. Similarly, let's do it for the to-do route. Export async function, get all to-dos, request response next. Copy and paste, get to do, update to do, delete to do. We don't need this. Now let's import all of this function into the route. Import, get all to do, get to do, update to do, delete to do. Remove this, get all to do. We have to create a controller for creating the to do. Let's call it add to do. Add to do. Add to do. Update to do. Get to do. Delete to do. This way we can keep all of our routes inside route folder, and for each route we'll define the controllers inside controllers and import it here. That way we can isolate the logic inside controllers, and we'll be using this only for the routes. I imported register twice. It should be logout. Logout. Okay, now let's create to do and user schema. For that, inside server, create a folder named models, and inside models, create a file name user model.js. Similarly, create another file to do model.js. Let's define our user schema. Import mongoose. From mongoose, const user schema new mongoose dot schema Our user schema will have field email and password. Email is of type string. Required is true. Must provide an email. Email must be unique. Required true. Email must be unique. Password, it is of type string. Required is true. I'll copy and paste it here. Must provide password. Now let's export this user schema. Const user mongoose.model user, pass the user schema. Export default user. Similarly, let's define schema for to-do. Let's copy and paste. To-do schema, to-do, export to-do. To-do will have title, type is string, required is true, must provide title, is completed, type will be boolean, by default is completed is false. We will toggle this value to indicate whether or not the to-do is completed. Also, each to-do will have the user ID of the user who have created the to-do. User ID, type is mongoose.schema.types.object-id, reference to user, required is true, to-do must have an owner, close all of the files. Now create a folder named utils inside server. Inside utils, create a file name connect.js. Here we will define a function to connect with our MongoDB database. Import mongoose from mongoose, const connection initially is connected is null. Export const connect to DB. This is an async function. Try catch. If connection dot is connected, then we'll return. We are doing this to avoid the creation of multiple mongoose instances. If the connection is already established, we'll use the existing connection. That is why we are returning from here. If the connection does not exist, we'll create a connection. Const db await mongoose. Let's use the connect method. Connect. We have to pass the MongoDB URI here. Let's keep the MongoDB URI in env file. Inside server, create a file name .env. Here, add your MongoDB URI. Process.env dot MongoDB URI. Connection dot is connected will be db dot connection dot ready state. If there is an error while connecting with the MongoDB database, let's console log could not connect with the database. Let's close all of the files. We are getting some error. Open auth.js. This should be auth.js. Open todo.js. Make this todo.js. Close all of the files. Let's set up JWT secret key in our .env file. JWT. You can add any string here. Also, let's set up the node environment variable. Development. Now let's create a utility function to create error. Inside utils, create a file name error.js. Let's create an exporter function. Let's call it create error export function. Create error. Create error function accepts status code and message as its parameter. Let's create error, const error, new error, error dot message is equal to message, error dot status code is equal to status code. Return the error. Now open index.js. Now let's define global error handler. App.use error request response next. Const status code is equal to error dot status code. If it is not present, by default it will be 500. Const error is equal to error dot message. If it is not present, default to internal server error. Then let's return the response with the error status code and the error message. Response dot status code dot JSON. Error will be the message. This is message. This is our global error handler. If in any of the routes we throw the error, all the error will be caught by this error handler. Open auth.js controller. To register the user, we need email and password, which will be provided by our client side or from the postman. Let's get the email and password from requested body. Once data, requested body. To enable requested body, we have to use body parser. Otherwise, even though the requested body is sent using the postman, it will be undefined. So we open index.js, import body parser from body parser, app.use, body parser.json. Also, to use environment variable, import .env, .env from .env, .env.config. We have to do this, otherwise we won't be able to read the values from our .env file. If no data .email or no data .password, return. Next, create error, import create error from utils/error. This should be error.js. Create error 400, missing fields. For now, let's just return with response.send, register route, save it. Here we are passing the error inside the next function. This error is caught by our global error handler. It sets the status and the error message and gives the response accordingly. Let's hit this API endpoint from our postman. Register, send, missing fields, click on raw JSON. Let's pass the email and password. Email is john@gmail.com. Password will be john@123. Click on send. Let's see our terminal. Let's console log the body. Sorry, data. Send the request again. We are getting the email and password. Now let's create this error in our database. For that, import connect to DB, import connect to DB from /utils/connect.js. Await connect to DB. Let's check if the user with the email already exist in our database. Const already registered, await user, import the user model, dot slash model slash user model.js, user.exists whose email is equal to data.email. If the user already exists, that is already registered, then return. Next, create error 400. Error message will be user already exists. For now, response.send register. Let's try it out. Click on send. Cannot read properties of undefined. Reading ready state. Open connect.js. Connection.is connected, db.connection. This should be connections. Let's try it out again. We are not getting the error anymore. Open auth.js. Now let's register the user. To register the user, we have to hash the password that the user has provided and then store that password in our MongoDB database. So import bcrypt from bcrypt.js. Let's generate salt. Const salt bcrypt dot generate salt sync. Let's keep the round to 10. Const hash bcrypt dot hash sync request dot body dot password. Pass the salt as its second argument. Const new user spread request.body and the password will be the hash value. Response.send new user. Let's try it out. Click on send. Queue is not defined. This is request.body. Click on send. We are getting the user. Now let's save the user in our database. Await new user.save. Response.status. Status code will be 201.json. User created successfully. Let's try it out. Click on send. 201. User created successfully. Let's see it in our database. Refresh database. Todo users zone@gmail.com. This is the password. Let's try to create user with the same email. Click on send. User already exists. Let's create another user. Jane. Password will be Jane@123. Click on send. User created successfully. Refresh. Jane@gmail.com. So we have successfully implemented the register functionality. Now let's implement the login functionality. For login, we should get email and password. So we can copy paste this. Connect with our MongoDB database. Connect to DB. Let's check whether the user with the email exists or not in our database. Const user. Await user.find1 where email is equal to request.body.email. If user is not in our database, return next, create error, status code will be 400. Let's return invalid credential. If the user exists in our database, then we have to check if the password sent from the frontend or the postman is correct or not. For that, const is password correct. Await, we can use compare method from bcrypt, bcrypt.compare, pass request.body.password as its first argument, and the second argument is user.password. If password is not correct, then return next. We can copy paste this. If the password is correct, then we have to create a token and pass the token inside the cookies. Const token jwt dot sign, import jwt, import jwt from JSON web token, jwt.sign. Let's sign the ID field, user._id, pass the secret key, process.env.jwt. This console log the token. For now, response.send, login route. Let's see our terminal. We are not getting any error. Now let's try to log in. Copy this, body, raw, JSON, paste it here, click on send, login route, email and password is same, so we are generating the token. Let's see what happens if we provide the invalid credential. harry@gmail.com, click on send, invalid credential, Let's see what happens if we don't provide the email field. Click on send. Missing fields. Let's send the correct email and password. Now let's send the token in our response. Response.cookies will pass the token in the response cookie. Let's call it access token. Pass the token. HTTP only, set this to true. Secure is process.env .node env is triple equal to production. Here I have set the HTTP to true and the secure is false right now, because in process.env.node environment I have added the value development. If you keep this field secure true, then the request cannot be from the HTTP localhost. It should be HTTPS localhost. In development we can keep it like this. However, in production you have to make it HTTPS. So right now in our configuration we have set this value to development, so secure is false. That is the reason we can send the request from Postman. In production you have to set this value to production so that the secure flag is true and the request can only be sent from the HTTPS. Let's send the request. Remove this, send it again. I did not send any response. Cancel it. Dot status is 200. Dot JSON. Let's send user logged in. Click on send. User logged in. Let's see our cookies. Here we have to add the domain. HTTP localhost 3000. Add domain. This is the access token that we have sent from our backend. It ends with QB0. Similarly, we can see the QB0 in this access token. Let's try it again. Clear cookie. Let's send the request again. CR cookie. Access token. It ends with DKQY. We are passing the DKQY, so it is working. Now let's implement the logout functionality. Response dot, we have to clear the cookie. Clear cookie. Cookie name is access token. HTTP only is true. Copy and paste this. Dot status 200 .json. Let's send the message logged out successfully. Let's save this. We have access token in our cookie. Now if I hit this input, this cookie should be deleted. Click on send. Logged out successfully. Let's see our cookie. Open access token. I'm still seeing the access token. Let's try again. See cookie. Right now the cookie is removed from our cookies. Let's try it again. Let's log in the user. Let's do the post logout request. We have token in our cookies. Let's send. Logged out successfully. Open cookie. This is not updating in the first click. Click on cookie again. As you can see, the cookie is removed from our cookies. Okay, now let's create a middleware utility function to verify the token. For each to do action, user has to provide token along with their request. We'll verify the token, and if the token is valid, then only we'll allow user to perform the CRUD operation on their to-dos. For that, inside utils, create a file name verify.js, import JWT. Let's create a function to verify the token. Export const verify token, request response next. Let's get the token from the cookies. Const token request dot cookies dot access token. Let's console log the token. If there is no token, we'll throw an error. Next, create error, import create error. From dot slash it is dot slash error.js. Create error, status code will be 401, not authenticated. If the token exists, we have to verify the token is valid or not. So let's use the verify method from jwt.verify token, pass the jwt secret key as its second argument, process.env.jwt, callback function, error user, if error, return, next, create error 403, token is not valid. If the token is valid, set request.user to the user and pass the request to the next middleware. Now open todo.js, which is inside routes folder. We'll use the middleware that we just created in this route. So import it, import verify token from utils/verify.js, pass verify token here, add verified token in all of our routes, verify token. Now when the user tries to hit any of our API route input related to todo, first the token is verified, and if the token is valid, then only they can access the controller function to perform the action. Open todo.js controller. Now let's implement the logic to get all user to do. Let's connect with our database. Await, connect to DB. We have to import it first. Import connect to DB from /util/connect.js. Connect with our database. Let's find the to-do from our database. Const to-dos. Await to-do. Import the to-do model. Import to-do from /model/to-do model.js. To-do dot find, where user ID is equal to request.user.id. In our verify token method, we have added the user inside request.user. This adds the user ID in the request.user.id. We are getting the ID from the request, and then we are searching the to-do with the user ID that matches the request.user.id. Now let's return the response. Response status 200 dot send to-dos. Now let's trigger this API endpoint and check whether or not our logic is working. Localhost 3000/API/to-dos. I don't have access token in my cookies, so I should get not authorized. Click on send. I'm getting not authenticated, so it is working. Now let's log in. I'm logged in. Get all to dos. Let's see the cookies. Click again. We have the access token. Click on send. I'm still getting not authenticated. Let's see our terminal. I figured out the issue. Open index.js. We haven't used cookie parser. That is why we are getting undefined in our cookies. Import cookie parser from cookie parser. App.use. Cookie parser. Let's try again. Click on send. We are getting empty to do. That is because we don't have any to do in our database. Let's remove the cookies. And then send the request. Not authenticated. Let's log in again. User logged in. Now let's get the to do again. Empty array. So it is working. Now let's implement the logic to add the to do. Let's log request.body. To create to do, the user have to pass title in request.body. If there is no request.body or in request.body there is no title, then we will return an error. Next, create error, import create error, from dot// utils/error.js 404. Title is required. If the title is present in the request.body, we'll create the to do and return the to do. Let's connect with our database. Let's create new to do. Const new to do. New to do. Title is request.body.title and the user ID is request.user.id. For now, let's just send it without saving it in our database. Response dot send new to do. Let's create endpoint to add the to do. Add to do. This will be post request. Endpoint is API/todos. Let's send it without passing the title in our body. Title is required. Let's send title in our body. Raw JSON title first to do. Click on send. We are getting the to do that we have just created. Now let's save this to do in our database. Await new to do dot save response dot status 201 dot json new to do. Remove this. Let's send it. Our first to do is created. Let's see it in our MongoDB database. To do it is here. Now let's implement the logic to get a specific to do. Let's connect with our database. Await, connect to DB. Let's find the to do by find by ID. Const to do. Await, to do dot find by ID. Request dot params dot ID. In our to do.js route, to add this get to do, we have to pass ID as its params. We are getting this ID with request.params.id. If to do if there is no to do, then return. Next, create error 404 to do not found. If to do exists, we have to check whether the logged in user is the owner of to do. For that, to do dot user ID. This is Mongo's object ID. So let's convert it to string. Is not equal to request dot user dot ID. Then return. Next, create error 404 not authorized. With this logic, only the user we have created the to do can access the to do. Response dot status 200 dot send to do. Let's try it out. Let's get all the to do. Grab the to do ID, get to do, add it here, click on send. We are getting the to do. Now if we provide another ID that does not exist, FF, we are getting to do not found. What about if we pass 1 to 3? We are getting this error because 1 to 3 is not a valid Mongoose ID. So it cannot convert the string to the object ID. We are getting the error at this line since we have not added the catch block. This is handled by our global error handler. So we are getting this error. However, let's give some specific error for that. Add this inside try catch. Let's return to do not found instead of that error message. Copy this, paste it here. Let's try again. To do not found. Okay, now let's implement the logic to update the to do. Let's get the ID first of the to do which the user want to update. Const ID request.params.id. If request.body is not present, then we will return. Next, create error 404, missing fields. Use the appropriate status code. I'm using 404. I don't think this is the appropriate status code for missing fields. You can Google it. Try catch. Await. Connect to DB. Let's find the to-do. Const to-do. Await. To-do dot find by ID. ID. Let's check if the user is the owner of the to-do. If to-do.user ID matches the request.user.id, then only they can update the to-do. Otherwise, they are not authorized. Now let's update the to-do. To-do.title is equal to request.body.title. If the title is not provided in a request.body.title, default back to the original title of the to-do. If request.body.is completed is not equal to undefined, then to-do dot is completed is equal to request.body that is completed. Let's save the to-do. To-do.save. Response.status 200. .json. Let's send the message to-do updated. If there is an error, let's return error. Return next. Create error. $500 404 to-do not found. Let's try it out. Let's update this to-do. Update to-do. Body. Raw. JSON. Let's update the title. Title to-do updated. Let's pass the ID of the to-do that we want to update. Click on send. To-do updated. Let's see the to-do. Click on send. To-do updated. Now let's toggle is completed field. Update to-do is completed. Let's set it to true. Click on send. To-do updated. Is completed. It's true now. Now let's implement the logic to delete the to-do. Add try catch statement. Let's connect with our database. Await. Connect to DB. Const to-do. Await. To-do dot delete one. Delete that to-do where underscore ID. is equal to request.params.id, and the user ID is equal to request.user.id. If no todo dot deleted count, return next, create error 400, todo not found. Let's add same error in our catch block. If todo dot deleted count is 1, let's return response status 200 dot json message todo deleted. Let's try it out. Let's add another todo, second todo, click send. Let's get the ID of the todo, get todo, get this todo. Now let's delete this todo, pass the ID here, click send, todo deleted. Let's get all the todo. Only one todo is present, that means our second todo is deleted. So we have successfully implemented the CRUD functionality in our backend. We will be using Vite to create our React app. By default, Vite uses 5173 port. We have to set up the domain, that is localhost 5173 in our backend. To prevent the curse error, for that open index.js, import curse from curse, pass the curse option inside the curse. This is the URL of our frontend app. We have to set up the credential to true to allow the passing of cookies from backend to frontend. Close this file. Now create a folder named client inside the root. We will create our React app inside this client directory. Let's navigate to client directory, cd client. Let's create Vite project with npm create Vite at latest. Select React, JavaScript, npm install. By default, Vite uses React version 18, but we want to install React 19. So in your terminal, type this and press enter. Now we are using React version 19. Let's run our app. Let's see our app. This is our app. We'll be using Shadcn to create our component. So let's configure it. Get started, installation, select Vite, copy this, paste it in your terminal, copy this, paste it and press enter. Copy this, open index.css, remove everything, paste it here. Copy this. In the root, create a file name js config.json. Inside object, paste it. Copy this, paste it. Open config.js. Copy this, paste it here. Copy this content. Open tailwind config.js. Paste it here. Now let's initialize Shadcn. Let's go with New York. Neutral. Yes. Use legacy peer dependencies. Let's add Shadcn button. Use peer dependencies. Close all the file. Open app.jsx. Remove this. Let's import button from components /UI/button. Let's use it. Click me. Let's run our app. This is Shadcn button. Now let's use different theme. Shadcn theme. Open the first link. Customize. Select violet. Copy code. Copy this. Open index.css. Remove this. Paste it here. Let's see our app. Now we are using the violet theme. Now let's do some cleanup. Open app.jsx. Remove this. We don't need button here. Remove this. Open app.css. We can delete this CSS file. Open main.jsx. We don't have to do anything here. Now let's install React Router DOM. We are getting some error. Open app.jsx. Remove this import. Refresh the page. Open index.html. Let's change the title of our app. To-do app. Close all of the file. Now let's install React router DOM, docs, installation, open your terminal, npm install react router /DOM. We are using React version 19, so we have to also provide legacy peer dependencies. Click on routing, copy this, open main.jsx, paste it here, copy this, paste it here, let's define our routes. For the route, we'll display element to dos. Let's create that component. Inside component, create todos.jsx, create component, import it here, import todos from component /todo, paste it here. Let's create login and register route. Register, login, let's create component, register.jsx, register page, login.jsx, login page. Let's navigate to /register, refresh the page. I'm getting to dos. Import a register, import login, register, login, register page is working. Let's navigate to login. Now let's add some global class in our app. Open index.css, apply busy background, text foreground, font is normal, dot message, apply text left, w full, padding 4, text small, text white, background F7 4850, success message, apply background 5C B85C, icon hover, fill slate 300, transition is in out, hover, cursor pointer, hover, fill primary, also let's set up our fonts. We'll be using Poppins font. Download font from Google Fonts. Click on Get Font. Click on Download All and unzip the file. I have already added my fonts inside my assets. Here, paste your fonts. This is the Poppins font that I have downloaded from Google Fonts. Now let's add Poppins font in our app. For that, at top, we are importing the fonts, and for the regular font, I have given the font name regular. Similarly, for bold font, I have given the font family bold. Now open tailwindconfig.js. Font family. For normal, we'll use regular. For bold, we'll use bold. These are the names that we have given to the fonts while importing them. Regular, bold. Let's see our app. Our font is changed. Now let's add components from Shadcn. We need dialog, input, label and drop down menu component. Select use legacy peer depths. Open register component. Let's create our UI for register component. Our register page, as this is our page. Let's import input, label and button from Shadcn. Import label from UI/label. Import button from UI/button. Import input. UI/input. Our register page will take full screen size. Let's center the element. Flex, justify center, item center, transform. Let's translate y by 16. Form, add input, label, label email, type will be email, name email, placeholder enter email, wrap this in div, add a class, flex, flex column, gap 6, max width will be actual, take full width, padding x8. For div, flex column, gap will be 2. Copy this, paste it, label password, type will be password, name will be password, enter password, save it. Let's see our app. Navigate to register, run our app. Let's add button. Register, add span tag, already have an account, import link from react.dom, login to /login, class name icon hover, text will be 6365, 7B, text center. Let's see our app. Click on login. Let's add space here. After already have an account, add empty space. Open index.css. Let's add different class here. Transition, is in out, hover cursor pointer, hover text primary, hover underline, refresh the page, login. Let's copy and paste this in login. Paste it here. Login. Change this text. Don't have an account. Register to register. Let's see our app. Register, login, open register.jsx. Let's get user input, const form data, set form data, use state, import it. Initially email is empty string, password is empty string. Value form data dot email, on change, on change, handle change. Let's create handle change function. Const handle change event set from data, spread previous from data, event dot target dot name, assign it to event dot target dot value. Copy this, paste it here. Form data dot password. Let's console log form data. This should be event. Refresh the page. Add email. Enter password. We are getting the value. We'll be using use action state from React to handle the user registration. Const state form action is pending. Use action state. Import use action state from React. Use action state. We trigger the register function. By default, success is null and error is null. Let's create this register function. Inside source, create folder name actions. Inside actions, create file name user actions. .js. Export register function. It will be an async function. Register. It accepts parameter, previous state, and the form data. Add try catch statement. Let's get the email and password. Const email. Form data dot get email. Const password. Form data dot get password. Let's console log email and password. Now let's send this email and password to our backend. Const response, await fetch. Let's pass the URL of our backend. HTTP localhost 3000 /API/user/register. Method is post. Headers. Content type. Application/JSON. Body. JSON.stringify. Email and password. Let's get the data that we have received from the backend. Await response.json. If data.error will return previous state, and error will be data.error, otherwise will return error is null. Success will be data. Copy and paste this inside catch. Error will be something went wrong. Open register, use effect. If state.success, then we'll run this effect. If state.success, that means user has been successfully registered. Set timeout. We'll navigate the user to the login page. Navigate. Import navigate. Import use navigate from React router dump. Const navigate. Use navigate. Navigate to /login. After 2 seconds, let's use this is pending state. Button. Let's disable the button while the user action is in pending state. So disabled. Will be is pending. If the form is pending, will display registering user or simply registering, otherwise will display register. Let's try it out. Refresh the page. Register is not defined. Import register from action/user action. Refresh the page. Use effect is not defined. Use effect. Let's add the email, password. Click on register. It should be at gmail.com. Say harry@gmail.com. Password will be harry@123. Click on register. Our backend is not running. Let's run it. Navigate to server. npm run dev. harry@gmail.com. Password will be harry@123. Click on register. We haven't set up our form action. Form action. We have to pass form action here. Form action. Try again. At 1, 2, 3. Click on register. We are getting error. Open user action. This should be 3000. Let's try again. harry@gmail.com. harry@123. Click on register. See network. Register. Response. User has been created. Let's see it in our database. Refresh the page. harry@gmail.com. Now, when the user has been created successfully, in the register page, we'll display a message and then redirect user to the login page. To display the success message, let's add a pop-up button. State.success. Then we'll return span state.success. Also, let's show the redirecting. Class name will be message, success message. If there is an error, let's copy and paste it. Success.error. Then we'll return state.error. We don't need this. Remove success message class. Let's try it out. Refresh the page. We are on register. william@gmail.com. Password will be william@123. Click on register. User has been created. Redirecting. We are redirected to the login page. Now let's implement the login functionality. Open user action. Let's export login function. We can copy and paste this. We'll do changes later. This will be login. user/login. Open login.jsx. Let's copy register page component, paste it here. Change name. This will be login. Import login. From actions/user action, remove this. For state.success, we'll redirect user to / export login. Register. Don't have an account. Logging in. Login. We don't need state.success. Pass login here. Open user actions. For login, credential should be include. Credential include. Let's try it out. Refresh the page. Harry at gmail.com. Let's enter the random password. Click on login. Invalid credentials. Let's input the correct password. Harry at 123. Clear this. Click on login. We are redirected to the to-do page. Application. We have our access token in cookies. That means we are successfully logged in. Now let's get the to-do of the user and display it here and perform the CRUD operation on the to-do. Close all the file. Open to-do component. We will be using SWR to fetch the to-dos from our database and to perform the optimistic UI updates. So let's install it first. npm install SWR. We have to use legacy peer dependencies. SWR test legacy peer dependencies. Also, let's install React.toast. npm install react-art-toast legacy peer dependencies. Open main.jsx. Import toaster from react.toast. Let's add it here. Toaster position will be top center. Let's try the toast button. On click. Import toast. Button clicked. Refresh the page. npm run dev. We are getting error. Open main.jsx. We cannot add toaster here. Add it above. Refresh the page. Click on click. Button clicked. Close this file. Now let's start working on this component. Also, inside source, I have added a folder named icons, which is inside components. Here I have converted the SVG icon into React component. This is our delete icon, this is edit, and this is tick icon. If you don't know how to do this, I suggest you to watch my previous videos. Let's import these icons. Import delete icon, import edit icon, import tick icon. Import use SWR from SWR. Now let's create reusable fetch function for get, post, put and delete operation for our to do. Const feature. This function accepts URL and options as its parameter. By default, option will be empty object. fetch, pass the URL, method will be options.method. If it is not provided, by default it will be get, headers, content type, application/JSON, credential, include, mode course, body will be options.body, if it is not provided it will be undefined. If it is provided, we have to stringify the body, json.stringify options.body, otherwise it will be undefined. Let's convert the response to JSON. Response.json. Now let's get all the to do of the user who is currently logged in. We have just created the user, so the logged in user does not have any to do, so we should get empty array, const data, error, mutate is loading, use SWR, let's pass the URL, http localhost 3000/API/todos, pass the feature function as its second argument, that's one todos. Let's console log the data, if error, return h1, something went wrong, class name, text to Excel, padding y2, text center, copy this, paste it, if is loading, return loading, otherwise we'll return todos. Let's see it in our app, refresh the page, see our console, we are getting empty array. Now let's create the UI for our component. Class name, margin X auto, margin top 20, max width LG, padding X 4, width full, flex column, gap will be 6. Let's add our profile icon. Import circle user round from Lucid React. Add it inside this div. H1, to-do app, class name, PG gradient, to write from Indigo, $500, VIA purple 500, 2 pink 500, font bold, text coaxial, text center, margin bottom 4, text transparent, background clip, text. Let's see our app. This is our app right now. Now let's add input field and the button to add the to do. Form, class name, flex, gap 4, item center, import input from UI/input, type text, placeholder, enter to do, name title, ID title, required, class name, let's add shadow, let's add plus icon inside button, import plus from Lucid React, size will be 20, class name, transition is linear, let's add a group hover, stroke white, let's add some class to button, height will be 9, rounded MD, border input, background transparent, padding X4, text base, shadow MD. Let's see our app. Let's add hover effect, flex, item center, hover, background primary, transition is linear, group, background primary, this should be hover, now let's implement the functionality to add the to do. For that, on submit, handle add to do, let's create this function, handle add to do, this will be async function, e dot prevent default, const form data, let's create new form data, If enter target, let's get the title from data dot get title. If title dot trim dot length is 0, then toast dot error to do can't be empty, then we will return. Otherwise, we'll create the to do const new to do. Title will be title entered by the user along with the adding text. We'll optimistically add this to do in our UI, and later we'll validate it from our backend and show the final to do. Underscore ID will be date.now to string is completed will be false. Now create a string function. Let's call it add to do. Now let's send the title to our backend to create the new to do and store it in our database. Const response await feature, pass the URL 1000/API/to-dos. Let's pass the options. Method will be post, body will be title. If response.error let's pass it to handle error function. Handle error response.error. Let's create this function. Function handle error. We'll get the error message in the function parameter toast.error. Error, we have to throw this error, throw new error, return spread data, comma response. Let's invoke this function, await mutate, pass add to do function. Let's pass the optimistic data. Optimistic data will be spread the current existing data and add the new to do. We have created new to do here. We are optimistically updating the UI with the new to do while the to do is being posted to our backend. Revalidate true. Roll back on error true. Let's reset our form. e.target.reset. Now let's understand the logic that I have implemented here. First, we are getting the title that the user has input. Then we are checking if the length of title is 0. In that case, we are returning to do can be empty. Then we are creating new to do. We are creating this to optimistically update our UI. In this function, we are hitting our backend URL. Then we are adding the to do in our backend, where we save it in our MongoDB database. If there is error while adding this to do, we are displaying the error message inside handle error. Then we are throwing the error from here. If the response contains error, as we are throwing error from this function, rollback on error is set to true. So the optimistic update from our UI is removed. And if our backend operation is successful, we are returning the previous data and the original response to do data that we are getting from our backend. And finally, this is being displayed in our UI. This overrides the optimistically added new to do, which is this. We have typo in the URL, http://localhost 3000/API/todo. Let's try it out. First to do, click enter. Okay, we got the first to do adding. We are not mapping over the to do, so we are not getting anything here. Let's map over the to do. If data dot length is greater than 0, then we will display the to do's by mapping over it. Otherwise, we return you don't have any to do. You don't have any to do's. Add div. Class name. Set medium. Border 2. Border input. Background transparent. Flex. Flex column. Rounded. Now let's map over the data. Data.map. To do index. Return div. Key will be index. Class name. Flex. Height will be 10. Item center. Width full. Let's add conditional class. If index is equal to data.length -1, then border bottom will be 0. Otherwise, border bottom will be 2. Inside this div, create span to do .title. Class name. Flex 1, padding x3. If todo dot is completed is true, then we'll add line through and text (63, 65, 7b). Close this. In the right side, we'll add 3 icons: edit, delete, and update icon. Div padding x3, flex, gap will be 2, import tick icon, delete icon, edit icon. Let's see it in our app. Let's add another to do, second to do. Here, when I insert this second to do, we'll see second to do adding. We are inserting this second to do optimistically. Later, when the insertion is completed in our database, we are revalidating it, so it becomes second to do. Let's try it out. Second to do adding, and later it becomes second to do. In case there is a failure while adding this to do, we'll revert back to the original data, which is first to do. Let me show you that. Open to do controller. In get to do, let's throw error after 2-second delay. Throw new error. Let's try it out. Third to do. Press enter. We got error in our response, so we reverted back to the original data. So we only have first and second to do. As the third to do insertion was failed in our database, we don't see it here. Remove this. Close this file. Now let's add some class to these icons. Class name, icon hover, we have to add another class for this. Transition is in out, hover will be cursor pointer. If to do is completed, then we'll return class text primary, otherwise text slate 300. Let's see. Now let's implement the delete functionality. For that, add on click event, on click, delete to do, pass to do ID. Let's create this function. Async function, delete to do. As we are using the optimistic UI update, let's directly show to do deleted. If later in our database the operation is failed, then we'll revert the previous data, and so could not delete the to do message. To start success, to do deleted, let's mutate the data, await mutate, create async function, const response, await feature, pass the URL. I'll copy this, paste it here, to do's slash ID. In option, method will be post, delete. If response start error, handle error, let's pass the error message, response start error. If there is no error, let's return the final data that we want in our UI. Return data.filter to do, return all the to do, where to do dot underscore ID is not equal to ID. Optimistic data will be same as what we are returning here. We are directly removing the to do from our SWR data. Later, if there is error, we'll revert back to the previous data. Roll back on error, set it to true. We don't have to revalidate. Set revalidate to false. Now let's delete the to do. Here we are passing the to do ID while calling the function to do dot underscore ID. Let's try it out. Refresh the page. Let's add third to do. Let's delete the second to do deleted. But here we are getting unauthorized. Let's see. Not authenticated. We have the access token. Open to do controller. Delete to do. CR terminal. Refresh the page. Let's try it again. We reverted back to the previous to do, as this delete operation was not successful. We are getting this second to do again. Let's try to delete it again. We are still getting unauthorized. Okay, I did mistake here. It should be feature, not fetch. Let's try again. Save it, refresh the page, click on delete, to do deleted, click on network, to do deleted was successful. So we have successfully implemented the delete to do functionality. Now let's toggle the is complete. When user clicks here, we'll toggle the is complete value. If it is false, we'll make it true, and vice versa. On click, pass the ID, to do dot underscore ID, to do dot is completed, pass it to handle complete. Let's create this function. Async function, handle complete, ID is completed, await, mutate, async function, const response, await feature, pass the URL. I'll copy and paste this. Paste it here. Method will be put. In body, will pass is completed. We have to toggle this. So not is completed. If response.error, we'll call handle error function and pass response.error. Otherwise, return data.map. We are getting this data from SWR. Initially, when we got all of our to-dos, we are getting this data and we are updating this data to optimistically update the UI. This return is the final update to our existing data, and the optimistic update that we are doing here is the temporary data that is displayed in our UI. Data.map, map all to do. If to do dot underscore ID is equal to ID, return spread all to do is completed, set it to not is completed, otherwise we will return to do. Optimistic data, we can copy and paste it here. Roll back on error true, revalidate false. Let's try it out. Refresh the page, click here. Let's see our request to do updated. Click here, request is still being processed. It was successful. Let's make it is completed false. Click here. Request is successful. To do updated. Now let's handle the to do update functionality. Let's create a component. Let's name it edit to do.jsx. React component. Remove this from here. Let's import the edit to do. Edit to do. Inside edit to do, we will return this. Import edit icon. I'll copy and paste some code. Let me explain it to you. We are importing the dialog from Shadcn. This dialog is inside component /UI /dialog. When we click the edit icon, a dialog will pop up where user can make the changes. I have added the state to track the changes in the input field, and here I have added the onChange event handler. Let's import this inside to do. We have already imported it. Let's pass the parameter title, ID, and handle update. Here we have to create function handle update. Missing function handle update. Let's pass it inside edit to do handle update. We have to pass ID and title. ID will be to do dot underscore ID, and title will be to do dot title. When the form is submitted, we are passing the ID and the title in our form. Here we will get the form data. Let's get the title and ID. Const title form data dot get title, const ID form data dot get ID. Let's console log them. Console log title ID. Refresh the page. Open edit to do. Export default. Edit to do. Refresh the page. Click on the edit icon. I'm getting the pop-up. We are passing the title of the to do. Here, and we are also passing the ID. When the save changes is clicked, this will trigger handle update function, and in handle update we are getting the title and ID. Let's try it out. refresh the page. Let's update the to do. Third to do updated. Click enter. We are getting third to do updated. Now we have to update this in our database. For that, open to dos. Let's mutate the data. Await, mutate, async function. Copy and paste this. Paste it here. Put title, body will be title. First title in the request body. We can copy paste it. Here we are updating the title. So remove this. Copy and paste this. Copy this. Paste it here. Comma. We can give revalidate to false. Let's try it out. Refresh the page. Let's update third to do. Third to do updated. Click save changes. Refresh the page. We have successfully updated the to do. Let's create another to do. Hello. C network. Let's mark this as complete. Successful. Let's delete this to do. To do delete is successful. Let's create it again. Now let's update it. Hello, updated. Click save changes. To do updated. Now let's log out the user. Now let's log out the user. For that, let's create a component. Let's call it profile.jsx. I'll copy and paste some code. Let me explain it to you. I have imported drop-down menu from component UI drop-down. Then I have imported the user icon, toast, and use navigate from React Router DOM. Here, when the user clicks on the logout, I have triggered the handle logout function. In the handle logout function, I have created the post request to user/logout. This clears the cookies. If the response is okay, we are navigating user to the login page. Otherwise, we are throwing the error. Let's import this in to-dos. Remove this. Import profile here. Class name will be flex. Justify int. Let's try it out. Click here. Right now, I have the access token. When I click on this, I should be navigated to the login page, and this should be removed. Click on logout. As you can see, access token is removed and I am redirected to the login page. Finally, we have implemented all the functionality in our To-Do app.